Well, we just wrapped up the 10 dimensions of wealth, and today we're going to do a deep dive on one of those dimensions. And guess what? It's one of my favorites. Can you guess where we're going today?
Welcome to the Grow Your Business for Good show. This is a place where coaches and consultants gather so you can learn how to lead a world-class business that does not tax your time, your energy, or your financial resources. We are your hosts, M. Shannon Hernandez
And Amy Hager of the Joyful Business Revolution. And our number one goal is to bring you clarity and insight on how to grow your business for good. Amy here with a guest because Shannon is on a flight from a speaking event. So my guest is Afrin Huq, and she's founder of Her Ventures and Red Elephant. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Amy, and I'm so excited to dive into this conversation.
Well, when we realized we needed to have a guest because Shannon was going to be on this flight, you were the first person we thought about because community is such a deep running value in both of our brands and both of our businesses. And I think that's what's made it so fun to collaborate with you and to really think and mastermind with you over different things. And so I am kind of curious though, what is your definition of community wealth? And why don't we dive into why is this even essential for long-term success in business?
Yes, let's do this. And you said mastermind. So when I mastermind, I need bullet points and I need stories to back up the bullet points.
Yeah.
So for me, community wealth is transformation over transactions. It's sustainability over speed, and it's community over competition. And when we talk about community wealth, we're talking about not just the wealth today or what's in our accounts today. We're talking about the future. And it's about what you earn, but it's more than that. It's about what you can sustain. It's about what you can pass on and creating something that is really strong and rooted so that it can create a platform and a foundation for future generations. But let's take a step back and have a conversation about what wealth means to me, Afreen.
Yeah.
I grew up seeing two worlds. I'm Bangladeshi, born
Mhm.
and raised in Queens, and my parents are both of Bangladeshi origin. It's part of the subcontinent of South Asia, east of India for a little geography. And I used to travel back to Bangladesh over the summers when I was growing up. And I really was able to look at different perspectives when I was growing up to understand how wealth is discussed around the dining table or
Mm.
discussed in office spaces. And this is my summary, is that in the United States, from my opinion, I feel like success is often measured by individual wealth, like what you own, what you achieve in your career, what's in your bank account, maybe what brands you buy from. In Bangladesh, which is one of the poorest countries in the world,
Mhm.
wealth and success is actually measured differently. It's about how strong your relationships are within your family. It's about the ability to sustain your household, like having a farm and eating farm to table and having the resources right at your fingertips for you to live a thriving life. So it's not just about the career and what's in your account, but I think we can learn from both worlds that wealth isn't just about money, it's about shared resources and deep connections. From the US, I've learned so much about ambition. I grew up in New York, ambition, innovation, financial independence, but from Bangladesh and learning from their wealth practices, understanding the power of community and
Yeah.
collection instead of just accumulation. It's about circulating the wealth and making sure everybody in your family and extended family and community is taken care of.
Hmm. And so then I think your definition, transformation over transactions, saying sustainability over speed, community over competition, that middle one, sustainability over speed, sometimes is where I feel as entrepreneurs and as people who want to build community and collaborate, sometimes we really get stuck at because we want those relationships to take action quick, to help us all and to do all the things. But
Yes.
sometimes it really is that slow down to speed up that makes community run deeply. And so, what are some of the key elements of a strong community network? And I guess how can we as individuals or even organizations really contribute to that growth, keeping in mind that it is the transformations over transactions, sustainability over speed, and community over competition?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's like, okay, this is great to discuss, but what are the actual structures that will
Yeah.
sustain these ideas? And I use a lot of elephant metaphors, owning a business called Red Elephant and Herd
Yeah.
Ventures. But I think we can learn from metaphors really quickly. So I believe that a key element of a strong community is similar to elephants within a herd. So if
Okay.
we think about elephants, they're deeply maternal, they're protective, and they work as a collaboration, as a collective. And that's one of the most, I think interesting things about elephants. And so I started studying them and understanding how they work in a group. And one story that I wanted to share is how elephants give birth. And there's like a video that goes around that people share with me. And I'm like, I love this video about how elephants give birth. And if you haven't seen one, go look it up. But I'll tell you, spoiler alert, when an elephant mother is giving labor, the entire herd of elephants surround the mother as she is giving birth, forming a protective circle. They
Okay.
shield her from predators. They stomp on the ground as a signal of strength to provide a feeling of safety for both the mother and the baby. And what's powerful is once the baby is born, the whole herd takes responsibility for raising and nurturing the baby and also caring for the mother. So it is an entire community that ensures the baby elephant thrives. Well, how does this relate to entrepreneurship? Well, we can learn from this context, the story, just like a founder
Yeah.
giving birth to a brand or a product idea or an event or a new venture, they're
Hmm.
stepping into one of the most vulnerable moments of their journey. Is this going
Yeah.
to work? Is anyone going to buy from me? Are
Right.
there outside competitors and threats, predators that are out there? And who's there to stomp on the ground to make sure that it is safe to have your bold vision take flight? What if we started to show up for other business owners instead of just watching on the sideline and scrolling and clicking, but we started in this protective circle, providing strength from one another, shielding one another? And what if we took it as our responsibility for the people that are in our herd, that
Mhm.
we protect and help them grow their business idea, grow their products and their brands? I have a couple more elements that I want to share, but I see you kind of leaning in, so I just wanted to check
Well,
in.
it's just like I'm trying to figure, I go to logistically, like, gosh,
Sure.
how does that work? Are we meeting on the regular on Zoom? How do we build that deep relationship to like know who's going to stop where, when, and why? And all of those things just kind of come through my head, but it the the way you're describing it and sharing the story of the elephants, it makes sense, and I think it is a different way of looking at that community wealth that really goes back to the way that you defined it. And so I think as you keep giving us some more key elements of a strong community network, I'm sure some of these are going to click differently for all of us as we're listening. But this elephant analogy, the other thing that I love about elephants, and just this is my personal I don't have an elephant brand. I just, I
Yeah.
think that their eyes are always very kind until
Mm,
they're not.
yes.
And
Yes.
so it feels to me like they live in this world of kindness. And so when you're describing the birth process, I never knew that until today, and it makes so much sense.
I love that you said that. And when I was brainstorming business names, I had, as one would have, like coming up with names, a couple of them, and one of them had elephant, and it was the clear what some pe humans, we love elephants, and I wanted to create something that the community loves and feels connected to. So I love that you say that. And one of the things as I go on this journey, I find people who are really like way more knowledgeable about elephants than me, and they share with pieces of wisdom.
Yeah.
Something that I've been sharing is that elephants are one of the only animals that are neither prey or predator.
Hmm.
So it's like they're just, and it's because of the herd, because
Yeah.
they live in there's not outside attack, and they don't prey. on other animals. And I think there's a playfulness that elephants bring and a gentleness. And one of the things that I love is that they can do that with simply their presence. They
Yeah.
don't need to roar. They don't need to create all this other characteristics. Like just by an elephant being an elephant, it has
Mm.
impact. And that's the kind of nurturing that we want to do for business owners is that they can have a presence. And I love the question that you asked because you may be listening in right now, like Amy is, and like, okay, well, how do I find my herd or how do I create that herd? And I wanted to just share another element. This is taken from a framework that I've created called Avatars of a Movement. And
Mhm.
why I wanted to share this with you is because I think I went to business school, studied marketing, and traditionally I learned like the mix of who is in the business are typically like business owners, employees, vendors, contractors, clients, prospects, to name a few. But I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that's transactional. And I said earlier, transformation over transaction. So if we're bringing forth transformation, let's build a wider space, a wider net, and a wider, uh, community where we have people who
Mhm.
have different roles that they can take on
Yeah.
within the community beyond client and business owner. So some of these, I'm just going to mention a couple of the avatars. I won't have time to go through all of them, but some
Yeah.
of the people that I would have you start looking at, you, Amy, or it's like, how do I create a herd that can shield and also support my business ideas? Is you actively look for people who are champions. These are people that see your vision before you need to create a message or a website for it. They just get it. You want them in your herd. You want advocates, right? We have people that will refer and share our ideas with other people. They'll champion those ideas. We also want to create a platform for leaders to be able to share the vision in other spaces, just like you're doing right now inside of the brand Joyful Revolution. It's just there, Shannon's on a plane, I think you mentioned, and you're here partnering together to still have the voice be heard. So find other people who can inspire action on the movement. Find change agents. These are maybe the clients that are doing the transformation and improving your work, or influencers that have a strong credibility in the marketplace to share. And find pioneers. These are the people that are like the early adopters. When you have a wild idea, you're not sure if it's going to be distributed. You want to find the people that are willing to take that first leap. So that they can create a bandwagon of followers. So if you start relating to your community as champions and advocates, leaders, change agents, pioneers, and the bandwagon, then the ability to connect and network gets so much larger than, are you a client? Are you a client? Are you a fan? Are you a ticket to this? Are you somebody that's going to be in a mastermind? Now you're scanning for who's going to be in my circle. And I think that's so much more powerful.
Well, and I think as you're and putting labels to these avatars or these people, like what is really awesome is I can instantly see like who are the champions, who are the advocates already in our space, who are the leaders that we're following, who are the change agents, those pioneers, who's on the bandwagon. I mean, I can clearly see faces and names. And so to be able to put them in different buckets than the way I've been looking at these people all this long is again very logical and like very easy to kind of break down and say, all right, like we do have these people in our community. What questions or what interactions and what conversations can we be having with them? Maybe a little bit differently through looking through that lens.
That's exactly it. It's just that slight change in perspective and relationship to people and networking and is the transformation that I'm seeking to spark. So thank you for engaging in that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Is there any other elements? Because I think the other question on my heart that we typically run into is, success and really having examples of success to follow. But before I move on to my next question, were there any
Let's
more
jump
elements?
in. There are, but I do want to get into like, okay, we're getting filled up on ideas, and
Yeah.
now we want real world examples so that we can kind of ideate or get inspired by some of the things that have happened around us. And so I want to just bring up like it could be an elephant in the room. Like we're now 5 years past when the pandemic hit. So I'd like to say we graduated from that time,
I'm gonna
but
roll with you.
yeah, but it was part of our history and it's part of our past, and we still like embracing it and reflecting on it. I think that it's important because that's when I would say I really saw community wealth arise inside of the communities that I played in. So during the pandemic, what I would say is an example of community wealth. And during that time, no one had a blueprint. There was no leadership that's like, okay, now that we have this happening, here is a funnel to implement in your business because the world shut down. We weren't just facing scarcity and fear around our financials and our products, but we were also grieving loved ones. We were dealing with how does this affect me personally and for our family. We all had to adjust, as you know. And so, we witnessed a lot of businesses, like big businesses. I would get alerts of like businesses that were going bankrupt or closing down, small
Yeah.
businesses feeling like they needed to, transition and adjust. So when I was seeing this as a business leader,
Yeah.
I saw we need to create a herd specifically for those who want to get through this together inside of a circle. Let's stomp on the ground together. Let's fall
Mhm.
down together. Let's grieve together. So I invited businesses to come together, not to sell, but just to get on Zooms and create structure to support us through this time. So for about 6 months, we had 45 businesses that came together. And the focus wasn't about making money and bringing in revenue. It was more than that. It was about creating business well-being and also
Mhm.
personal well-being so that we can strengthen who we are through
Yeah.
this time and beyond. And when we were able to connect in community in a safe space where it wasn't just a goal of like, how much did you bring in and how many people did you sell? It was a different shifted conversation. Some of the examples that came out of it that were really exciting is a nonprofit got born. This is somebody that was doing herbal spices, teas. She had a lot of vendors and was a distributor. And then during that time, she had to shut that down. And we started looking at the communities that were really important to her at that time. And she works also as an event vendor. So if you go to a performing arts, she does the costume changes and is a stagehand.
Okay, yeah.
And so that community, I didn't even realize, so impacted because all events shut down
No.
and they're mainly a gig economy. So
Hmm.
they fell into a lot of desperation. So she was able to match up this idea of helping this community by working with a local farmer who
Mhm.
also got shut down because their distribution was farmers markets.
Mm.
They're growing all these vegetables and beautiful produce, but there's nowhere to sell it. So she created something called Farm to Trunk and was able to create bags and meals for this community and beyond in Orlando that had such a ripple effect. And that idea, she, did a video. She's like, it would not have happened
Yeah.
unless we came together and championed her ideas. And she didn't know how to start a nonprofit, but somebody in the community did.
Did.
And she didn't have enough team to get all the bags ready for Farm Trip, but the people in the community rolled up to the parking lot and supported her. So this is something that she's really proud of. She submitted an application for Brawny, the paper towel, because they were running
Yeah.
um, grants, and
Yeah.
she won a grant from
Wow.
Brawny, which was amazing. So that's one example. Another person who really succeeded during the pandemic is I had a massage therapist. So if you can imagine during that time when
Yeah,
everything's done,
exactly.
like how do you can't do virtual massage?
You
Maybe
can't
you
do
could
virtual
teach, yeah,
massages.
maybe you could teach self massage, but doesn't,
Right.
that's not the same type of benefit. And so through community and sharing what the other people in the community wanted and doing small focus groups, she was able to pivot and created a trauma release program that
Hmm.
was virtual and energy clearings and also creating a community of other health and well-being providers that were in the same boat and kind of creating a leadership circle for them to get through this. And now they are her top paying consumers because she's now partnering with them, not just looking at selling to people who want massages, but being able to find collaborators that are willing to invest in her vision. So I would say I'm also just gonna brag for a moment. Like I benefited from this too. I didn't know what we were gonna do. Most of my events prior to 2020 were in person.
Yeah.
So event our like signature year event, Amy, scheduled at the Marriott in Orlando, March 2020, and we were like holding strong. And then all of a sudden it was like, no
Couldn't do
gatherings.
it.
Yeah, couldn't do it. So I'm not a digital girly. I am now. I've trained myself like Zoom and point click and all that. But
Yeah.
before that, we were just like events in person was my thing.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get the support of other people in our community that were championing and stomping for me, what
Yeah.
I've accomplished in the last 4 years, even though it's been completely disruptive, and even I'm going to be call out the elephant in the room, like cash flow wise, like I wasn't selling my high ticket programs, but I was able to sustain. I'm here today because I was able to sustain. I was able to sustain because I had people in my community that were the pioneers willing to take a leap to try new ideas and new projects. And so I've been able to launch new programs. A new business was born, Her
Right.
Adventure.
Because
I was selected to be a keynote speaker at the National Association of Women in Business. I was also a winner of their Women Who, sorry, finalist. I was a finalist of the Women Who Win. Maybe that's like a slip for
yeah.
future, claiming it,
Mm.
future. I did get awarded by SoFi Bank as a winner for a grant for my vision for the future,
Yeah.
using some of the things that I've shared.
Yeah.
And just being able to have doors open up for me where people are bringing me into other communities to speak. And that happened truly from the wealth of the community because of their commitment to open doors and make sure that I sustain who I am as a business owner, even through all of that disruption.
Well, and I think, sharing these stories, especially as we are graduating or past the pandemic, I think are always some of the most inspirational stories of how people can come together to make things happen. And so I'm kind of curious as we look into where we are in the world in business now, what are some of the challenges that people are facing trying to build trust and collaboration? And how do you really overcome them in what we know is business now past the pandemic?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I'm going to take some time with this one because I
Yeah.
really want to give what I've seen when people come and share some of their challenges, because sometimes it's hard to ask these questions on a social media post or, to be
Yes.
vulnerable. So I have three more bullet points on this. So the first thing that I want to say in terms of challenges is sometimes it's challenging just finding a community that you feel safe in.
Yeah.
Working with people, I've been doing business for over 24 years. I've learned that although I have a really powerful relationship to community, I've also experienced where I wasn't safe. And in my sharing that, I found that a lot of people have experienced trauma,
Hmm.
betrayal, disappointment in communities that they were supposed to trust. Families that let them down, school environments that were toxic, religious institutions that shamed instead of supported, workplaces that didn't value them, and friendships or business partnerships that were not reciprocal. And I hold empathy for that. I know for some of us, we may be going through that right now. And, for some of us, it feels like we have to take a break from community. We have to step away, and I think that's safe to do that when it's connected to a strategy like I'm going to take a break, for this time, but being able to reintegrate and find your community is also important. What I find to with a lot of people is that they get this lone wolf mentality. It's like, well, that
Yeah.
didn't work. Just going to do it myself. I don't trust anybody, and what if somebody takes my idea that I'm birthing? Right.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I just want to say it's okay. It's okay if you're in this is part of it. But I would just invite you, if you're in that challenge right now, just to start small.
Hmm.
Maybe don't find a herd, but find a pack. Like a pack is like 5 people, and
Yeah.
find that 5 people that you really feel safe to build with and that you feel supported to build with. There are people out there, and it could be that you are the one to create it, that you're the leader to create that community, or maybe you're done leading. I know a lot of leaders that created big networks and they're done leading. So they're now joining or following and being a part of another community. And it takes a little
Yeah.
bit of like, well, I could lead this thing, but you have to shed the ego and be like, well, maybe I need to be led right now for my healing
Right.
and for my recovery. So I think keep exploring, because I don't think you can do business alone. I think community is like food, water, shelter for business. Like it is essential. Like you need community to thrive in business. So make sure that you look at if it's something that you're resisting or challenged by, that you take some small steps. I can get to the next one, but did you have, I feel like you wanted to ask
Well,
something.
so then, the thing that I love that you're sharing that really kind of it's so hard, hit home for me was
Tell
as
me.
a leader when it's okay to step back and not take the lead on
Yeah.
something. And I think that is really, really hard for those of us who identify ourselves as leaders, who have always either been, it comes easily or you're forced to lead because of whatever situation you happen to be in. And so giving that permission that it isn't you that has to lead the group, has to lead the charge. It's okay to be an active participant. And that permission's huge right there.
Yeah. It's great. I think uh we think about us as leaders standing for something, and I say sometimes it's okay to sit before
Yeah.
you take the next stand. And, I used to compare like, well, I can't sit, there's too much work to do. But I did, and I allowed other people to lead, including Shannon and you, over these years. I'm like, okay, I want to find out beyond what I've led, like other leaders that I trust. And here we are creating, really magical things together because there's strength in that level of support. So thanks for sharing that
Yeah.
reflection. Let's actually talk about collaboration. That was one of the other things that you asked about was,
Yes.
what are some of the challenges? And I would say I'm actually going to look at it from like self, like to be a great collaborator, you have to be a great person to collaborate with first. So I'm
Mhm.
not going to talk so much about like scanning and looking out there, but I think that we have to look at ourselves. We all have strengths. We got this far, but there's a book title. It's like, you can only get this far. Like the next stage is about building the next level of skills. So I really think that we're in the era right now of upskilling and reskilling. So if there are things that you're really passionate about, strengthen that, be an expert, be a specialist in that. I believe strongly in sharpening your skills. And so I'm pursuing my MBA right now. After 24 years of being outside
Being
of
in
school.
business.
I'm going back, and it's actually a stepping stone because I want to get a PhD. I want to be a
Yeah.
Dr. Huck in business because I want to be a really great CEO, consultant, speaker, advisor, mentor, and I think there's more for me to learn. Now, I don't think everyone has to go back to school, although some people have been inspired to do that, based on my story. But I think there's so many brands like Joyful Business Revolution and Herd Ventures and countless others that are creating these mini cohorts and workshops and retreats that are designed for skill building. So if you are actively growing who you are in those spaces, you will naturally and organically attract the best collaborators because they're interviewing you, they're watching you in the room, and that is a shorter leap to converting a collaborator than going to a networking event, going through the series of coffee chats, trying to understand is there a connection? You know it in the room. You have instincts that will guide you. When you are with somebody that is also growing, I feel like it's magnetic. So I think to be somebody that is going to challenge yourself to be strengthening your abilities and your skills is how to tackle being a great collaborator.
Yeah, and I think we learned that and we've experienced that firsthand in our brand. And I feel like there's not a time that Shannon goes out or that I go out to an event, even as an attendee, as a speaker, of course, but being able to ask questions, to grow within, and having other people hear that and hear the questions that you're answering and hear the conversations that you're having and take part in some of those. Those are some of the best collaborators that we have met so far in this brand. And so I can definitely echo what you're saying that as you're going out and expanding yourself, sharing your story, being curious and asking questions in those environments, you are going to be attracting those who want to be a part of your tribe or of your herd. And I think that sometimes we just forget about that and we think we have to do it through that old-fashioned way of having coffee chats and sharing one-on-one time. And I think no one collaboration is the same as the other. That's for sure. And I think it is because of the different experiences we get to bring to this world as humans and through our lens of how we see the world.
Yeah, I want to highlight one thing you said, experiences. Like shared experiences really bond one another, and from that bond, it can ignite something really beautiful.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, I love that you've been able to break this one down a little bit more deeply because even though community building is something that I love and something that feels like it's very, very natural to me, I know that it's not that way for everyone. And so that's why we wanted to pull this one out of the 10 and do a deep dive and really be able to give people a couple more tools and a couple more different ways of looking and thinking about building their community. So I'm so glad you were able to spend time with me today and go deep on this whatever number dimension of wealth it was. I cannot remember.
No, thank you so much. And I wanted to end with this is that community wealth is such an important conversation. I've never really heard it phrased in this way. So I applaud the innovation and the discussions that you're having offline to be able to bring this to an audience. And I think that community wealth is doing this, is being able to get different stories and perspectives of people that have different relationships to wealth. I shared today my story about growing up in two worlds in Bangladesh and in the States and being able to learn from other people who have experiences around wealth, different cultures beyond this is going to help us create a really strong foundation of community wealth. And I love having this conversation because I think that if there was one thing that was said today that will spark a transformation and create and ignite something bigger than this, this podcast, that is my, my mission. So I want to end with a love letter that I've written for the people that I really stand for, that I stomp on the ground for. It's my manifesto. And so if I can have a moment, I would love to share that with your
Yes,
audience.
please do.
Okay, great. I'll just pull it up here. Creative forces, visionary minds, and voices of change. You are a force of nature, a hurricane of ideas tearing through limitations and igniting new possibilities. Step boldly. Now I'm going to add stomp boldly into your future. Be brave. Embrace your brilliance. Surround yourself with people who breathe life into your bold ideas. Don't whisper your wisdom. Don't hold back and don't dim your light. It is your birthright to be seen and heard, and this is your time. Speak like you're running out of time and watch as your ideas spread. Listen as your voice unites people. It can build legacies beyond our imagination. Rooted in resilience, you are paving the way for dreams to take flight. And it is our mission to fuel that impact. It is our herd that stands with you. Together in every space, we're here to remind you that you are a creative force, a visionary mind, and a voice of change.
Thank you so much for writing that and sharing today.
Thank you. It's my heart expressed. Thank you for giving me the space and the safe space to share this. And I've enjoyed our conversation and look forward to more.
Yes, me too, definitely. And, for those of you that are listening, again, I think that's the thing that I love about the Joyful Business Revolution is we want to be a powerful community where we can uplift each other, where we can rely on each other to dive into the deep knowledge and expertise that we have and to be able to really segment this out and look at it through some deeper lenses to question what are our next steps in building more community wealth in my brand. And I think that's what everyone's leaving this episode with today. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So if this did resonate with you, I do want to encourage you to check out how we at the Joyful Business Revolution support mission-driven business owners to really cultivate multi-dimensional wealth. And I know that Afrin as well, her website is out there. So if you're looking for Red Elephant or She Adventure,
Her adventures, yeah.
Her Adventures. I knew I was going to get something wrong on that. Thank you. Please check us out And we look forward to exploring in next season. And I'm not going to share the theme with you all either. I'm going to keep you guessing. So thank you so much. Subscribe, leave a review, and share your reflection with us via email. But until next time, let's redefine what community wealth is and let's grow our purposes together. Bye-bye.